if what I've been through can help someone else, I think that that's just a legacy. A minor one, but it's the only one I've got. I think, gosh, it could have started when I was born, because I think I was born abroad. I was an only child for 6.5 years. My sister was a lot younger, but I chased things. But I definitely had addictive tendencies, I think. When did I start to realize it? It was probably in my late 20s. Probably in my late 20s, when I realized it started with, say, the Blue Nun or the Asti, all these drinks that became everyday drinks. And I just got married, and I started to, instead of just going out and having a drink, buying wine in and having it for the weekend. And I suppose by my 30s, that became something that you come in after work, and that was the first thing I reached for. I think that was probably the start of it. I don't know if that was the start of my addiction, because I think I was maybe born with it. I don't think I was drinking a lot in my late 20s. I think it was normal to have a glass of wine in the evening. But it wasn't bottles like it become by the end of my drinking. So it wasn't a lot, but it was normalized. And even then, I didn't see my drinking as a big problem. But then again, I think it's a very slippery road, any form of addiction, because that's how it slips in. And because of the illness, I didn't ever think, I did not think I was ever an alcoholic, which I truly was at the end of my drinking. But I didn't, because I always thought, well, I don't drink whiskey like my mother, so I couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. I think the addictive mind is always full of delusion and denial, and justification. And I had all of those in pots, because I'm an addict. I can't just have one pot of justification. I could justify anything. My husband started to notice, especially when I started, probably in my 40s. That's when he used to say, you're getting like your mother. And that's when I started to hide it. And for me, someone once said this to me, and I think it's a true test. A 3 test to see if one's an alcoholic is hiding it, gulping it, and blackouts. It's the craftiness of the illness in my brain. Because if I'd had a lot to drink, when I woke up, I would listen to my husband's breathing. And if I thought he was awake, I thought, I've got to keep still, because he'll tell me off about how much I drank last night. So I'd keep still and wouldn't move and pretend I was fast asleep and wait for him to get up and get ready for work. Because otherwise I'd have a telling off. And at that time, I still didn't realize I was an alcoholic. I was just playing cat and mouse with my husband so that he didn't tell me off. So I would drink during the day before he came home and try and sober up, or I'd wait till he'd go to bed and I'd say, I can't sleep, and I'd have a lot more to drink. And that was adrenaline based in many ways. The fact that I could try and trick my own husband, who obviously just had to look into my eyes. I'd start wearing sunglasses and say that I had hay fever. the addiction made me very crafty. It was my youngest son's bar mitzvah, and I was very drunk. When the photos came back, just seeing that in black and white or in colour, seeing my face, I was quite skinny, but my face was very bloated. I was so embarrassed, that stopped me drinking. I didn't drink for about 3.5 years. I didn't. And that was without AA, that was without the Priory, that was without anything. But that was what I would probably term as a dry drunk, because I had nothing. All I'd done was stop drinking, but I'd picked up other things. I picked up doing a bit of speed, and amphetamines I was doing during the day, and then to try and get myself to sleep at night, I was doing bottles of Benylin. And I've often shared this in meetings. It was every nerve in my body, before I'd even swallowed that glass, that gulp of champagne, it was like a Walt Disney firework display, not just your little Roman candle in the back garden. Every nerve in my body was like being lit up. It was, oh, you know, welcome home, boys. It was like I was wired again. And everyone at the party said, oh, look at Georgina, she's got flushed cheeks and everything. And that was on the Monday, lunchtime. And by the Friday of that week, 3 bottles didn't even touch the side of my throat. I was hooked. I lost my life then, because I was just ruled by alcohol and sometimes drugs, but when I crossed that line, it was mainly alcohol, because I had a thirst that couldn't be quenched. It does sound dreadful, because I am so ashamed of it. I am ashamed. I had cancer of the cervix many years ago, and I didn't think I'd be able to have children. So my 2 children are absolute, they were gifts. They were gifts from God that I did not think I would ever have. And addiction actually took me away from being a mother I wanted to be. My day looked like getting them off to school and coming back and thinking, I'll just have 1 glass just to steady. I got very bad shakes. And I thought, I'll just have 1 glass just to stop the shakes. And it used to be a bottle. And maybe 2. And then I was good, or maybe 3. My days became absolutely ruled by alcohol. Throughout my recovery, even if it's Christmas Day, even if I've had an operation or whatever, I phone another alcoholic or another addict in recovery every day. I need to. And we were chatting, and they were saying, oh, I don't know if I found out I could have a tablet, I wouldn't trust anything. This life I've got now is so precious, I wouldn't deviate from it. And I seem to always be coming off your questions, but I've got to say, those are the 2 things that I think of that still today can bring me pain, just thinking how dark and how near to death I was, and I didn't see it. That's how this illness is within the fellowship, in the Priory. It's called the family. It is the family illness, because it has such a knock-on effect. My mother was an alcoholic, and she was someone I never wanted to be anything like. And I really didn't think I was like my mother. But to the end, that's how I turned into her. I was always chasing that drink. I was never present for them. They became disgusted, sad, repulsed. And my husband was driven to his wits' end. He wrote me a letter while I was in the Priory talking about the ramifications of divorce. They were embarrassed. I did not want to come in here. I thought, this you will laugh at, but this is how my mind was. When I was packing, for a start, I should have been here at 12. I told my husband, no, they don't want me until about 4:30, which meant I had more to drink. Also, I only packed for 3 days because I thought, when I've been in for 3 days, they'll tell me that I don't have a problem and that you can go home and just drink like a lady. And I can remember all these nurses. I sat down, I can remember sitting in this room and them asking questions. And it felt like there was 12 of them. There was probably only about 4. And they were all writing. And I said, has anyone given you permission to write about me? That's how I was bombastic. I was awful. And the nurses here are angels. They are absolute angels. And I should think they're so used to seeing people like me come in. And then I can remember I was shaking so much. And I found it hard to stand, that they helped me wash. The nurses here were absolutely, they were so kind. They were so kind. They were like angels here. I came to a meeting, it was the ladies' meeting. I identified with quite a few of them. And I don't know when it was in the meeting or whatever. I can remember saying, do you know, I said, I think I'm an alcoholic too. And that was the first time I'd ever said it. One of the therapists said, Georgina, there is a solution. And it's a simple one. And that for me was like my pre-step 1, because she said that to me. And I thought, do you know, I'm sick of being sick. I'm sick of being fed up. I'm sick of all of this, and I'm starting to feel better. I quite like it. And I just thought, I'm going to try this. They said it's simple. And when that therapist said that to me, that is when I was on board with this. And I tried, I just gave it everything. In fact, that's when I became addictive to this recovery program. That was my turning point. That was, and do you know, actually it's not, because I've got long sleeves on, but usually when I say that, at first, for many years, it used to make all the hairs on my arms go up. I think every addict in their madness has that moment of clarity where they actually hear that there is a solution. And that's what I got. That's what I got on that day in here. I had that gift of desperation where I wanted this. The Priory became like a home to me, and they nurtured me, they educated me, fed me, they loved me better. But there was a lot of things that the Priory did in theirs that didn't make sense at the time, but I didn't realise how much I'd come to rely on it. When I first started, we do daily diaries in the morning, And now I look back on my work, and the first couple of days I looked like my writing was like a little drunken spider across these pages. But just writing all my feelings down, I'd never seen or never even thought of my feelings before. I'd never realized I had feelings. And I was having a lot of feelings every day. And because I started discussing them, I started being able to self-soothe myself with my feelings, which in the past I'd always used drugs or drink. And if it wasn't for the Priory just starting me on my way to recovery, I don't think I'd be brave enough to have gone to the meetings if I hadn't started them while when I was in here. I'm in awe of people who just come in and go to meetings without the luxury of how I started. I really was blessed. I really was. It was part of my journey. In reality, with hindsight, I would have been too ill to have gone into a meeting without someone with me, I think. But who knows? All I know is that the Priory started off my journey in my new life, in the life I want to live, free of drugs and alcohol. And for that, I can't thank the Priory enough. Recovery's just brought out the better things, and I think that has just flowed out and through my family, and it's made my family better. My children now want to spend time with me. I share, my eldest wants to be with me. We go on walks. He talks about things emotionally to me. My youngest got married when he was 32, about 3 years ago. And he asked me to walk him up the aisle and say a few words at the wedding. He only gave me 3 minutes. I did go over. Recovery's given me a life I want to live, and it's out there. It's just amazing.